Yeah, so welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today on the first nutrition advisory group meeting for OmniAction. We're having people join from a huge range of organizations, scientists and experts from organizations including Danone, GAIN, WBA, WBCSD, ATNI, UK Soil Association, Sustainable Food Trust, WWF, Rockefeller Foundation, DEFRA, World Farmers Market Coalition, the Healthy Living Coalition in the US, the Indigenous Peoples Climate Justice Forum, as well as the George Institute for Health, and many more as well. So we've got a great crowd signed up for the event today. I will drop some links into the chat in a moment, which is where you can follow our progress, whether you'd prefer to do that via email or via social media. And you can, if you have a look at those links in a second, you can follow us there. Now, while we're all here, before I hand over to Lise to the body of this, one of the key messages today is that true sustainability is the future of food. It's efficient, it reduces overheads, it generates market share, it attracts better finance, it reduces the burden of poor health too. It's a win-win. In the face of the cost of living crisis, integrating sustainability into the food system is the way forwards for governments and businesses to tackle the rising cost of food. So with that, I'll hand over to Lise to introduce OmniAction.
Great, thanks so much, Gavin. So hi, everyone. It's so lovely to have you all here. Gavin, if you don't mind just keeping an eye on people joining as well, thank you. But we've got a great gang to get started with. For those of you who are new to us today, OmniAction is a global community of actors from right across the food system. We developed a framework rooted in human rights to address the social, nutritional, and environmental impacts of the food system. Our framework is explained in the Charter of Global Food Impacts, which I'm sure you've all read from cover to cover. Gavin's going to drop the link into the chat here, though, for you. We belong to the Food Forward Consortium, which is working separately too, but in a complementary fashion with the UN Food System Summit. Our credibility and our momentum is really thanks to all of you, the inclusivity and the hands-on expertise of all of you, of our community. Our solution uniquely is driven and agreed by this community of hundreds of actors from all corners of the food system globally. You're real operatives dealing with the challenges at the coalface. Many of you are being hamstrung and frustrated in your attempts to apply your expertise to true sustainability, and this is where we hope we can help. We held our first LCA practitioners group meeting last month, and we've pretty much nailed what a first assessment will look like for our environmental topic. The weightings are going to be led by each indicator's impact on planetary boundaries, and we'll ask Anya to speak to this a little bit later if we've got time. During the LCA practitioners meeting, we touched on the relationship between soil health and nutrition, which is one of the indicators we're going to try and progress here today. We'll be looking at the possible outcomes of combining nutrition scores with social and environmental metrics. One of the research claims that struck us was something that we saw around the fact that you need to eat so many more oranges today for the same nutrition that came from one orange in 1980. We thought we'd drop an image in about this, but we're not sure about it, so I think maybe we won't. But it was just something that kind of caught our eye when we discussed it with a few of you. So this is quite startling as an idea in terms of what it reveals around soil health, and also when you consider the overconsumption, land use, biodiversity loss, and the inefficiency that this represents. So we'll hopefully get a little bit closer today to determining how we can let consumers know whether the orange they're about to choose is particularly nutritious or not.
Thanks, Lise. So today we're going to discuss why nutrition and sustainable diets metrics need a North Star. We're going to run through Omni's existing indicators for this topic, and we're going to explore existing reference methodologies and question the likeliness of inclusion for first assessment guidance. And before we get started on that, I'm going to invite Rituraj Pookan to speak to us for a couple of minutes, because he told us about some foods that the Omni framework would probably give a pretty high score to across the indicators and topics we'll be measuring. So Rituraj, I'm thinking in particular of the beer that's made by indigenous peoples in northern India, where you're based. This product is associated with healthy biodiversity, genuine traditional recipes. And I can only imagine the combination of ingredients make it healthy to consume, affordable and accessible. So Rituraj, are you there?
Yeah, thanks, Ren. It's such a pleasure to be here, and I see a couple of familiar faces at least. Yeah, Liz, I talked to you about the food of Northeast India, which is pretty much similar to many of the indigenous communities who are dependent on the biodiversity around them. And one of the things that I mentioned is the homemade liquor or the rice beer that we call, which involves a process of fermentation. And each of the indigenous communities collect about 110 or more different types of herbs, roots, shoots, fruits, some of them fresh, some of them dried, and some even fermented. And all of that is brewed into this traditional drink, which is very much a part of their culture, a part of indigenous rituals, traditions. Besides being such a strong part of who they are, their identity, it also provides a lot of nutrition as well as ensures their immunity. Some of the studies that have been done on these traditional drinks actually talk about a lot of health benefits as well. So that is in a very short what I wanted to talk about. But one thing I would like to add is that each of the 60 or more indigenous communities just in the Eastern Himalayas, where I live, in the northeast of India, has their own specific traditional drinks, and sometimes more than one. And all of these are derived from the vegetation around them. So it depends on the biodiversity where they live. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Rituraj. That's quite right. And as we said earlier, the idea that this is affordable, accessible, very much produced in harmony with biodiversity means that it's the kind of thing we're quite sure that the Omni score would rate very, very highly. Rituraj is also concerned with making sure that local Indigenous people are engaged in the biodiversity restoration proposed at COP26. And I just wanted to mention that we haven't come across anybody receiving any of the funding pledged for this. So if anyone has any clues around this, do just, let me know. The thing that it helps to bring us to is the simplicity of capturing data on the ground to measure OmniAction's indicators and ensuring that local people, traditional custodians and workers are involved in capturing this data, recording it, delivering independent third-party monitoring. So we're going to ask Andrew Dudley next to run us quickly through one platform which enables this. Andrew's going to show the simplicity of measuring soil and water health, as well as other indicators OmniAction will be measuring, including land and labor rights. Andrew, are you with us? Maybe not.
Just to have a double check. Let's see. No. Okay.
Yeah, we can't see Andrew. Maybe, Gavin, we should just go straight to Ethan, because Ethan is able to show us what happens once that ground level data is being collected, and we'll make sure we get Andrew along. He might join us later, actually, and we can take some time for him.
Okay, yeah, and Ethan's here. So we'll turn to Ethan, who's from How Good, and he's going to show us what's possible once the data has been drawn into his platform. So this is our way of showing that all the elements are in place for companies to start measuring the quality of their own sustainability in a meaningful way. We imagine for many new formulations, new supplier relationships driven by a holistic corporate policy will be pursued in order to improve the scores before those scores start finding their way onto consumer-facing food labels. And that's what we're here to help with. Our work is provided as a public good. We're always going to be a not-for-profit, dependent on fair use donations and philanthropy. As such, we have removed all the obstacles to initiating true sustainability in food and agriculture, and we want to bring an end to greenwashing. So with that, we'll hand over to Ethan. Are you there?
Hi there, good to see you all.
We might, great. We might need to make sure that Ethan's got co-host.
I think I can share screen already. Looks like I should be able to. So hi everyone, Ethan Solovyev here. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer at How Good. I'm also a small scale farmer in upstate New York in the USA. So I grow apples and sheep, grass-fed sheep and lamb, and shiitake mushrooms. I'd like to tell you just briefly a quick overview of How Good and who we are. And then also show you just a glimpse of some of our sustainability intelligence platform, which is used by some of the largest and also some of the smallest and coolest food producing companies in the world. So I'll give you a quick overview of How Good, take a glance at the platform, and then hand it back over. So How Good has spent the last 15 years mapping out global supply chains. We pull from over 550 different data sources and certifications. We have 33,000 different ingredients, chemicals, and materials in our database, including information on over 247 different metrics and attributes, everything from greenhouse gas emissions to water usage to animal welfare to soil health to labor risk and working conditions. And we've assessed over 2 million products that are already out there on the market. Much of this comes from working with larger retailers, but we also work with some of the world's largest food companies, from Danone to Nestle, Kraft Heinz, even restaurants like Chipotle and beyond. So that's a quick overview of How Good. And now I'll actually pull up the platform itself so you can get a quick look into that. Can you all see this? Great. So I'm going to log in here. I'm just going to go into our innovation workspace here and show you what the folks who use this sustainability intelligence platform, what they get to look at and see. So if I look here, I can see a full portfolio of products, everywhere from a yogurt to a hummus to somebody's breakfast they made. And we can see a number of things about them. We can see which ones are minimally processed, important for nutrition health, which ones are climate friendly, so are better than 70% of the products that are out there in terms of carbon footprint. When you dig into an individual product, so let's go into this yogurt here, you can see a large number of things about the product. So instantaneously, you can see, how good is it on its raw greenhouse gas emissions? What is the actual quantitative impact of its greenhouse gas emissions in terms of carbon? You can see things about its nutrition, so the energy, proteins, fats. We can also see the details of what's in it. So here it says there's milk, there's sugar, there's blueberry puree, there's different individual products. And if you click into any of them, so if I go to Innovate, I can go into a blueberry puree and say, well, this actually comes not just from the United States, but from Maine in the United States. And you see a number of practices improve. So soil biodiversity goes up significantly sourcing from Maine as opposed to directly in the United States. You can also add different standards like organic, regenerative organic. For meats, you could add grass-fed, and you can see the impacts on all of these different metrics. We can also calculate the sort of higher level things like Nutri-Score as implemented in the European Union. Also the new Eco-Score that's in France. We can quickly see, what is the total impact of this product? And as we make changes, we can see how this product actually improves, and then roll the whole thing up to a portfolio level view so that companies, large and smalls, can see the whole impact. Yes?
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up there. Sorry.
Perfect.
Not timing, but is that okay? Are you all done?
That was it. I was just wrapping.
Perfect. Amazing. Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. Really great to see all that as well. So moving on, I would like to bring in Ty Beale, who's a research advisor for GAIN. He's going to run us through the dangers of bad labeling that misinformation.
We're actually going to go to John Crawford first. Sorry, do you mind?
Is John here?
Yeah, John's
okay.
here.
Go on then.
John Crawford, show yourself, please. John is a professor of strategy and technology at the University of Glasgow Adam Smith Business School, and he specializes in system science, soil science, computational biology, sustainable agriculture, and complexity. So he's just our man for the subject when we talk about the relationship between soil health and the nutrition of produce.
Yep, thanks. Sorry if the background's a little bit noisy. I'm having to hide in a little cafe to join the meeting. I put this, summarise this in the chat, but I run a thing called the Global Soil Health Programme, which aims to try and restore the health of the world's soils, agricultural soils, as quickly as possible, which also contributes to climate, food and water security. The interesting thing about when you try to fix soil, you can't do that without fixing the rest of the food system as well. And the really positive opportunity of taking a whole value chain approach is that a healthy diet is absolutely in line with a healthy environment, and it takes a lot of pressure off the farming system to deliver food. And the health of foodstuffs begins in the soil as well, albeit it often gets destroyed on the way to the consumer. So I'm really interested in whole value chain approaches to delivering nature positive and climate zero food systems, whilst also delivering health, dietary health. And towards that, we're involved through the World Economic Forum with a program to transform the European food system to nature positive and climate carbon net zero, using the approaches that we've developed in the Global Soil Health Programme, and then beyond that, with the World Economic Forum 100 Million Farmers platform, to look at ways that we can scale this up in India, in Kenya, and in Colombia and South America in the first instance.
Were you expecting us to cut you off there at 3 minutes?
I was cutting myself off because people are now moving tables around, and it's going to get very, very painful in a minute with background noise.
Well, that's a fantastic introduction, and I think it's wonderful for everybody in this group to know that that work is going on, and that if you don't mind, where relevant, actually connect with you. And we'll get to our metrics, our indicators in a moment, but John's been forewarned that we will be asking him to give us guidance on how we come up with a measure, how it is that we do measure this relationship between the nutritional impact or the nutritional profile of produce and the quality of the health of the soil that it grew up in. So shall we now have you bring in Ty?
Yeah, and also everyone, if you have got any questions, ask them in the chat, and likewise, if anyone who's spoken wants to jump in there and answer questions, you use the chat there as a chance to really network and talk to each other too. So yeah, I'd like to bring Ty Beale now, who's a research advisor for GAIN, and he's going to run us through the dangers of bad labeling, which misinforms the public, and why it's important to ensure consumers in all global markets are protected by valid nutrition labeling. And I think he might like to tell us about findings regarding the recently released Food Compass nutrition profiling system and the investment risk this poses to policymakers and financiers. So Ty, are you there?
I'm here, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll be brief. I just want to highlight a few issues that we have sort of uncovered when we've looked at some nutrient profiling systems. So nutrient profiling systems by default typically look at the nutrient content of foods, which is an important aspect of nutrition and health, and it should not be disregarded. But at the same time, it's just one aspect of nutrition and health. It's very important to look at the processing of foods. We know that foods with similar nutrient profiles on paper, similar amounts of fiber, protein, fat, carbohydrates, etc., can have very different impacts on the body. So the level of processing, the hyperpalatability of ultra-processed foods can be particularly problematic, even when it appears that the nutritional profile is a very healthy profile. So some of the concerns we've had with Food Compass, which also applies to other systems like Nutri-Score and others, is that there's a bit of a reductionistic approach to kind of quantify foods and label them according to their nutrient profile, which the impact of single nutrients on human health is very limited, in the sense that foods contain tens of thousands of compounds that interact together synergistically. There's a food matrix that's complex, and the more processed a food is in general, the less robust that food matrix is, and there can be problems that arise. So what we see in food compasses, oftentimes there is some benefits that, encouraging fresh fruits and vegetables, pulses, etc. But there is also a sort of risk that we're incentivizing ultra-processed foods. So sugary breakfast cereals, Honey Nut Cheerios, Lucky Charms can get really good scores, whereas some of the more minimally processed foods like millet, whole wheat bread, boiled eggs score much lower. And so I think it's really important to just be cautious about that. But in general, one of the most important concerns that I would have is applying some of these systems that have been developed in the West to the low and middle income country context, particularly because the nutritional issues are very different, and the risk of inadequacies or micronutrient deficiencies can be very different. So if we sort of have this approach that is overly emphasizing nutrients, we may risk penalizing significantly animal source foods that would be actually really beneficial to the populations, particularly in low and middle income countries. And again, we risk saying, ultra processed foods, as long as they have a decent nutritional profile, they should be given the stamp of approval. And we know that that's not really always the case. So I'll leave it there to be brief, but thanks for the opportunity to share.
Thanks so much, Ty. That's great. Thank you. We're going to turn quickly next to Laura Treisberg from ATNI. She's a senior researcher at the brilliant Access to Nutrition initiative, who've been providing guidance to OmniAction on this topic. We'll be using the MPSC as a starting point in our nutrition measure on the basis of ATNI's guidance. And Laura's going to introduce some more of the methodologies that we should be incorporating. Laura, I think you're with us. I can see you.
Yes, true. I hope everybody can hear me.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Lisa, for the introduction. At ATNI, we assess companies on how well do they provide healthy products. And this is in the broad sense of the word healthy product. So we look at the products itself, product profile. And for this, we use the health star rating nutrient profiling system. It's actually a nutrient profiling system used in Australia and New Zealand. Also used on the label, can be used on the label. It's a bit like Nutri-Score. That's might be more familiar to people. So we use the health star rating. This is assessed on the product level. How healthy health star, how many health stars does the product have? And however, we actually look at another aggregation level. So we look more at the company level. So there is product level information, which feeds for us into the company assessment. And furthermore, marketing, we also include marketing in our assessments, and which also includes claims, marketing claims. But this is, again, based on company level. So the specific question related to claims is, does the company base its claims on solid scientific evidence? I don't know whether I have much more time, but I will leave it here because these were the main topics I was asked to talk about. I can expand much more on all the different topics we touch upon, but these were the main share here in the call. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Laura. The marketing claims aspect is a really, really important one to us as well. We're going to incorporate an indicator that covers that off. And that's going to include a question as to whether something claiming to be traditional has actually been agreed as such by the traditional custodians or the indigenous people who it claims to reflect. Along with things like breastfeeding, breast milk replacement claims and that sort of thing. So I know we'll be relying on you a little bit more for some support as we develop those indicators.
Okay, brilliant. And next up, we've got Carla Homs from our partner organization, the World Benchmarking Alliance. And she's here to discuss what we view as a quick win for policy and business partnerships, and that's the accessibility and affordability of nutritious food. Omni's framework would give items hitting this target a higher score. So Carla, are you there?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hear me and see me? Perfect. Maybe I just share a few slides. It should hopefully come up. Yeah, so thanks again for the introduction and really interesting. Is it coming up in slide mode? Do you see my screen? Just checking. Okay, perfect. Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction. Really interesting interventions already. So thanks a lot for the invitation. Yeah, I just wanted to share super quick WBA's Food and Agriculture Benchmark. We look at healthy and sustainable diets, assess 350 keystone companies across 4 measurement area, of which one is the nutrition measurement area. And I think the main point is really that all keystone companies all across the value chain have a key role to play on nutrition topics. And WBA has assessed companies for the first time in 2021 on our methodology, including the nutrition measurement area, of course. And what we've really seen is that overall, just diving into the topic quickly of addressing accessibility and affordability of nutritious food. So only 20% of the 350 companies disclosed a commitment to work on or to improve the accessibility and affordability of nutritious food. And of those, only 29 companies already demonstrate evidence that they really take initiatives and can provide evidence and data for working on the topic. So this overall really shows, here you can see the 6 nutrition indicators WBA is focusing on, and just overall across all the topics we look at, you see here from food safety, labeling, availability of healthy foods, workforce nutrition, responsible marketing, and then accessibility and affordability. So these are the topics that we feel or assess all companies on across the value chain. And just overall, we see a lack of disclosure from companies, and really figured out through the data we generated that the nutrition measurement area was lacking. So there's more disclosure already on the social side, more on the environmental side, but it's really part and parcel of the food system transformation. And we see a lot of commitment at this stage, but companies are yet struggling to really demonstrate that they, that practices and initiatives are at the heart of their strategy or tied this to their core business. So we can see that it can be done, and some companies are clearly leading, but the majority really needs to step up. I put 2 links here. So WBA just also launched an insights report with more sectoral findings and examples of leading practices. And just overall, we develop methodologies based on societal expectations and latest science. So the methodologies continue. They should serve as roadmaps to really support companies in stepping up their efforts. And I think overall, one can say that there's good guidance out there already, and momentum is growing, especially also for the non-consumer facing companies for whom it's more difficult to act on nutrition, because the link obviously is a bit more indirect. But we hope that our data we have and we continue to generate will continue to support OmniAction metrics, and that our methodology and data can help to support. I stop here and stop sharing. Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for that, Carla. So just for the benefit of our community, what we hope to do is find that by having an impact by OmniAction actually going inside companies and supporting them in the development of holistic sustainability policies, which include improving access to affordable and nutritious food, that when Carla and her team come back to this benchmark, they will find that that number's gone up from 20%, where even 21% would be a win for us. But the point is that Carla's team depends on publicly disclosed information. So we hope that by having an impact on the inside around sustainability with companies, we can see that number going up. So we're going to move next to Matt Watkins, who's here from the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. He was heavily involved in the True Value of Food report, which I think we've got a link to, and getting under the covers of the fact that agri-food creates costs worth twice what it earns. And those costs are passed on to society in the form of, we see it in child slavery, low wages, the health burden from consuming unhealthy foods, the implications of environmental damage and climate change. So Omni's framework reflects this concern by giving food which doesn't create these external costs a higher score. And we're going to ask you, Matt, I'm sure you're here with us, I've seen you, to
I'm here,
introduce us to the true value of food. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Lise. Thanks for the introduction. I feel a little bit guilty. I don't have a genius solution, unlike some of the other participants to talk about, but just happy to say a couple of words about WBCSD and some of our work on the topic. So as you mentioned, I think everybody knows amongst this group some of the really significant problems that we have in our current food systems. One of the ways that we looked at examining this topic was to think about these externalities, as we call them, these external costs of food system operations, which are imposed not on the actors of the food system necessarily, but on external parties. So we worked with a number of organizations coming up to the Food System Summit to quantify some of these externalities, which came out at, I think, slightly less than 20 trillion US per year. So in terms of the food system operations, we know that the value of food system businesses is around, I can't remember the exact figures off the top of my head now, but what we can say is there's a big gap between the value that we're creating in the food system and these external costs which are imposed on society, which total this huge number of 20 trillion US per year. So we can certainly see that we have a problem to work on. As WBCSD, we're a membership organization of 200 multinational businesses. We work on a variety of different topics. Primarily, the project which I work on is called FRESH, Food Reform for Sustainability and Health. And we are concerned with connecting both the environmental and sustainability impacts of food systems with the necessity that we know we all need of providing nutrition for everybody within these planetary boundaries. I'll just come to an end because I know we're going around a lot of people. Just to say that in terms of our activities, we work quite a lot on a project called Positive Consumption, looking at how we communicate and how we influence the decisions of consumers. And I personally work on a project called Positive Nutrition, which has focus areas around processed foods, which has focus areas around demonstrating business leadership, and also on the affordability of nutrition as well. So I'll leave it there, but anyone can get in touch with me if they have any further comments, questions, etc. Thanks, Lise.
Brilliant, thank you. Thanks a lot.
So next up we had Viola, but I'm not sure, I can't see her in the audience. So Viola, are you there, or if you're under another name on a different device? No, I think we don't have
She may not have made it today. Okay, great. I think what we might do, if it's okay with everyone then, is just cut to the table that we've got so far regarding our indicators and where we are with them. I know we sent a draft of that in the invitation, but Gavin, do you mind popping that maybe up on your screen or into the chat so that people can see it? I know, again, we don't want to put people on the spot, and lots of people may have ideas that they'd prefer to bring to us, privately by email or a one-to-one chat. But what we just wanted to do was open this out to the group in case anybody wanted to contribute around them today. And this is where we are, we think, at the moment, in terms of what our indicators might look like in terms of a first pass approach to scoring. So as we've heard, we think that when it comes to the nutritional score, we're all going to agree that the nutrient profiling scoring criterion will be okay. And we can just get going with that. John, I'm not sure if you'd like us to bring you in now and whether you'd like to speak to this, but we're hoping that we'll be working with you on just finding that reference methodology that we might start working off in terms of addressing the relationship between nutrients and soil health. Did you want to come in there, John, or does anyone else have any other views they'd like to contribute? Just sort of...
I can certainly help contribute to that. not just personally, but also with the science committee. We've got an international science committee as part of the Global Soil Health Programme that will help contribute to that as well.
Great.
Soil, yeah. So soil health tends to be measured in terms of plant health rather than human health. And funnily enough, humans need slightly different mixes of nutrients than plants do, and often stressed plants are more nutritious than plants that are grown in a monoculture and protected with all kinds of products to stop them being stressed. So there's a really interesting opportunity, I think, to look at the link between soil health and plant and human health, not just through the food, but also through the microbiome. And something we've been talking to colleagues in India about is looking at the link between the soil microbiome and the gut microbiome, which could, that I think there's a really good chance that there might be some common elements between those two microbiomes.
That sounds really positive. So I think in terms of us leaving that there as a medium, maybe to a high, you can count on me to try and get you to nudge it into a high, John. And hopefully that can be included, if not in the first assessment guidance, perhaps the next. But it sounds as though that's really positive, and we should hold a specific meeting around this, getting all the right minds around the table to determine how we can progress this indicator. That's fantastic. I know we've got Fidelity here from Pasture for Life, and I'm not sure if there's anybody else who'd like to speak to any reference methodology we might rely on regarding the improved nutritional profile of meat that is purely pasture fed. My understanding is it comes with a better profile regarding omega fats, but I'm not sure if there's anybody else with us who'd like to speak on that particular indicator.
I can speak to that briefly.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I have a colleague, some of you may know that him, Stefan Van Vliet, who has done a few studies recently and is ongoing with studies. But one of the, I think, interesting findings was, yes, I think there are certain essential nutrients that are higher, omega-3 fats, as an example. But I think one of the things that was super interesting was that they compared grass-fed or pasture-raised meat and milk, and this is very diversely fed, so like over 100 different crops versus grain-fed, and they noticed significant differences in phytonutrients, all sorts of phytonutrients that potentially, and the amounts actually in reasonable amounts, not as high as in fruits and vegetables or other plants, but in amounts that could really contribute to overall phytonutrient intake. So I think that was that was just published this last year. I think that's interesting.
That's fantastic. Thank you. So we'll make sure we get our hands on that and look at how we can integrate it into progressing this indicator. Oh, Fidelity, you've added a link for everybody.
I was just going to say that I think Gillian's work is really interesting, and that's the most current work that we've got. The Pasture for Life, if you go onto their website, and I've put the link in there, quite a few years ago now, pulled together all of the data we could. We've got a researcher to basically do a trawl through everything. A lot of it comes from the States, but basically the top line headline there is that even by feeding cereals for just 8 weeks at the end of an animal's life, you reduce the benefit of a good omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. So I think there is a lot of evidence out there on that. As I say, Gillian Butler's done the best recently in the UK. And it's frustrating for us that this is not just about nutrients, but this also comes back to labeling. So that at the moment in the UK, you can put the term grass-fed on your meat or dairy products if it's just 51% grass-fed, which means that you don't get any of the nutritional values that you would be expecting. And most customers have no idea that you can do that. So that people are being misled into what they're being sold by that.
Yeah, it's a really important point. And I think it's probably worth mentioning that we have, fantastic organizations like Access to Nutrition and World Benchmarking Alliance kind of laying the field, if you like, or preparing the field with the work that they're doing. But because we ask the questions from the perspective of the consumers, it means that we do take this different approach, and it gives us the opportunity to develop our indicators in a slightly different way. So yeah, I think that that's, really good information, and it's just important to underline the fact that we began by positing that question, which is, well, if there's all this great research going on around about the enhanced nutritional benefits of this kind of meat, why can't I find a label anywhere that would direct me to that? And it does make it difficult for producers such as yourself, Fidelity, to actually express the value of the work that you're doing and the way that you raise your meat to consumers, to actually get closer to them in terms of helping them to understand why what you think you do is better.
Basically, the only way you can do it now is to rely on getting a certification, the Pasture for Life certification, which will, if you're the consumer, give you the guarantee that it is 100% pasture fed. But again, if as the consumer you don't understand that the term grass fed doesn't mean it, you're not going to look out for the Pasture for Life certification, because you don't understand that that's what you need to do. So it's very confusing for the consumer, really.
Yeah, I think that's why we hope that by capturing those values in a nutritional topic, we can help to make that a bit easier for them to understand. So we were hoping that Viola might be here to talk about how we might progress the indicator around seasonal versus sprayed and stored. I know we've got India Hamilton from Scoopy. I don't know if you're able to help with this one or not. India, can you hear us? No, and if not, that's also fine. We can come back to that one. Laura, I wonder if you'd like to come in again on this indicator around formulation and marketing claims, and speak a little bit more about the approach that you take at Access to Nutrition on this.
Yeah, sure. Well, regarding marketing, we actually have divided it in three parts. So one is related to children, because marketing to children, of course, is an important part of, it's a vulnerable group, and marketing should be regulated. But also related to what kind of marketing policy does the company itself have. And the third pillar in this is the auditing. Does the company itself audit adherence to its marketing policy? So that's the three different categories, subcategories, so to say, within marketing that we're looking at. And of course, there are different indicators related to these different subcategories. So that's kind of brief, but good to mention that it's on the company level.
Yeah, great. And again, just to sort of say, we hope that with the help of your own reference methodology, we will be able to start applying some weightings against that indicator in a first pass when it comes to our own metrics. Ty, I'm not sure if you're the best person to come to on this, or whether even maybe Agnes from Danone is with us. On going after the best possible reference methodology around how nutrients can be absorbed in the body, and which, where we might start in terms of coming up with some weightings against this as well.
I don't have that at my fingertips, and to be honest, I think it's still the evidence is still a bit unclear exactly on that. So I think I could be wrong, but my sense is that it's certainly important. There's definitely cofactors, and in general, obtaining nutrients through a natural food matrix, whole food, is better, but there are definitely exceptions and considerations. For just having a food fortified, it doesn't mean necessarily that it's going to be poorly absorbed, but it does mean that it could have different health effects. Oftentimes the health effects are not just from a single nutrient, like supplementing with beta carotene. It's from the combination of nutrients. So I think in general, it's much safer to assume it's better to consume the package of nutrients that are found naturally in an inherently nutritious whole food.
Okay, that's great to know. So I think maybe what we need to do is put the call out across our community for reference methodology that might help to kickstart us here. I think it looks as though we should move the readiness, robustness down to a low for now. And it's probably not likely that this will be included in our first assessment guidance. So that's probably where we are today, unless, of course, we can uncover that nugget of methodology that we need to progress us in the short term on that one. Carla, coming back to the indicator around affordable and nutritious, I would like to think that actually readiness, robustness is high, and we can absolutely just get going in terms of including this in first assessment guidance. I don't know if you'd like to come in on this here, or whether there's, again, anyone else in the community who'd like to speak to this. I'm going to take that as a yes. Okay, and again,
can I comment this question because it's Anya from Danone. I just wanted to mention that we are currently working on that topic about affordability within WBCSD, because as a member of the private sector, working with other big companies, we are really feeling not very comfortable today with what we have in terms of definition, but what affordable products is, or affordable food is. And because it's so context specific that we probably cannot use one single definition. And I think it would be very helpful if with this work in OmniAction, you could make some progress on that part, because we know that we need to mix different kind of knowledge to really come up with a relevant approach. And so we are currently working on our side as a private sector to deliver some paper with the business perspective. But I think having a broader view and some, let's say, guidance, practical guidance about what affordable products are, how do you define that, and what kind of product we put behind this definition could be very helpful. Thank you. That's
really, really great to hear. Thank you so much. We've been proceeding on the basis of a basket of goods. So what we would look to a company to provide in terms of its evidence would be a basket of goods determined by WHO as being a basket of nutritious goods, and then looking at whether or not, according to the local economy and the local diets, this is a localized diet as well, whether they are affordable. So it would be very, very local, and we would be coming up with guidance as to what affordable means in a local context. So we won't say specific, and again, obviously we know, particularly right now with inflation being what it is, prices are in flux. So we wouldn't be setting out numbers and saying, 40p is about right for the cost of a tin of tomatoes in Fulham in London W8 today. But we would say that according to the general income expected of this area, we believe that it should come to an X or Y proportion of that income. That's the approach that we have sort of sketched out. If that sounds like a bad idea, please just head us off a path immediately. And we're very, very open to the guidance of people who know more about this or have thought about this longer than we have. And again, I think that this to me is the most exciting indicator. I really do believe that we can have the biggest impact, and it can be considered the quickest win here. So I think there's everything to play for in terms of getting this right as quickly as possible with as much support as possible. So I don't know if anybody has anything else. Carla, your hand is raised.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I think I wasn't quick enough before. No, but thanks a lot for asking. And I think, yeah, like we totally share that it is a very important topic, and therefore WBA also decided to include it. And I think just from when we read like reports about or research about like food system transformation, it becomes very apparent that affordable healthy and nutritious food needs to be affordable and accessible by everyone. I think that's like kind of the prerequisite, and we have to work towards that. But I think in terms of readiness and robustness, I would also not put a high here. Like, I think it's a bit like there are other indicators where I think in terms of the nutrition dimension, for example, food safety, we have GFSSI. There's lots of, since years, I think, lots of very clear guidance materials and frameworks out there, and it's pretty, like regulated. There's food labeling, I think, where likewise you could say maybe there's not the perfect definition of how a front of pack labeling should look like, or there's, like, for good reasons, probably still global differences. But again, I would put a high for such a topic, or maybe even workforce nutrition. I think the Workforce Nutrition Alliance, they are made really great progress in coming up with a clear framework that is endorsed and supported by many actors. But we do not yet see such a level of agreement and clarity for the affordability of healthy food. So we came up with, I think, the best of our ability to synthesize what we could find from research and societal expectations, but it was one of the indicators where we struggled more to find clear expectations than for other indicators and frameworks. So therefore, I think, I would put that level of readiness a little bit down.
Okay, well, that's disappointing to hear, Carla, but thank you. And I think what we've also heard, though, from Annie, which is so important, is that in terms of the need, the market for this indicator, if you like, that is in fact high. So I think maybe what we should do is just redouble our efforts to get the right people in the room, put a proposal which is more fleshed out than what I've discussed in front of everybody, and see how we can progress that as quickly as possible, I think, because it would just be so beneficial for everyone, for business, for policy, and of course for consumers. So the next question is to all of you as to whether or not there are any other indicators perhaps missing from here, or there's any other reference methodology that's perhaps missing. Carla, all of that's unbelievably helpful. So we have to make sure that the very next iteration of our charter reflects what you've just provided as well. Can we open the floor to any other ideas that we haven't heard yet? No, guys, I'm going to take that as a yes. That just means go. Okay, fine. I wanted to ask if Yemini Fuli, are you with us? And I'm wondering if there's more that you'd like to add on the subject of soil health that perhaps we haven't covered.
Oh, hi. Yes, thank
Hi.
you. Thank you. I just, as a soil scientist, I just echo what John was saying about how the health is measured by the plant. The health of the soil is really measured by the plant health. But then at the same time, we're breeding crops now to look good and to yield higher, and not necessarily to have all the nutrients and taste good. So I just wanted to add that to the equation.
So I'm wondering if we should, within the indicators, whether we should look at scoring on the basis of the, whether it's a heritage crop, for example, or a legacy crop, or that kind of thing. Would that make a difference?
Yes, it would make a difference whether it's been modified or not, yes.
Right.
And yes, of course, the land use is, how land is used and how the soil is being overused is also will reflect on the plants and the yields and the quality and the health of the crop and the nutritious value of it as well.
That's really helpful. So that helps us to reflect those indicators across on the environmental topic as well, which is really helpful. We've got two hands raised. One is from Sarah Blanchard. Sarah, would you like to come in?
Hi, Lise. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, perfect. Hi, Gavin. Just had a couple of suggestions there. I put them in the comments, but I'm not sure if they've been seen. Going backwards order on the seed and the crop breeding, is it worth having a look at the WBA index on access to seeds? The lady that was speaking earlier may be able to comment on that. Maybe some of the methodology there could help. The other one is on the affordability, the IDH, which is the Sustainable Trade Initiative in Holland, has done some really good work on living wage, and as part of that came up with methodology to look at people's ability to afford food. So they might also have some ideas in there as well. And then a question was whether on the processing of the food, if you're going to include the NOVA score or something like that. And just a suggestion on somebody who's pretty into the whole nutrition topic, and I think also is a colleague with Ty or communicates with him, is Frederick Leroy in Brussels. I'm sure you're aware of him. So that was my suggestions for now.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thanks so much. And John, I think you had your hand up as well.
I did, yes. I was just going to add on to that comment about soil health and plant health, that we should also think that healthier diets, which will be more diverse, also enable healthier ways of growing things, because you can have longer, more diverse rotations, which also build soil health. And I'm not sure if we need to include the plant in a definition of soil health, because I think you can define soil health in a very similar way you can define human health, and of course plants will contribute to that in different ways, but in ways that can be understood. So the problem of including the plant is, in the definition of soil health, it just means the number of variables goes sky high and becomes very, very context specific and location specific. So I totally agree that we've bred plants to grow in increasingly degraded soil, and that require higher inputs as a result. And that's absolutely true. But I would hesitate to include the plant in a definition of soil health.
Great. That's great. We're going a long way very, very quickly today, which is really, really exciting. Thank you. India, you have your hand up as well.
Hi, I'm not going to put my video on, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, very fascinating conversation. I'm very keen on understanding the affordability of food. And there's one methodology that's got me really thinking at the moment from a place-based perspective. And that is some work that the New Economics Foundation had done on the value generated across a very localized supply chain. So it's not so much how cheap is food, but the impact that system had in the local area on different aspects of value within that food context. And that was out, so it was mainly focused on growing communities in London from memory. And the other aspect of the affordability of food is how much goes to the farmer. And that work has been done by better food traders. So yes, great if that food is cheap, but can it also provide enough a living wage standard for the farmer themselves?
Yeah. And
better food traders offers the analysis of where money's spent on supply chains, basically. So they're the two elements.
That's fantastic, and that's so helpful because it takes us back to what Matt was talking about in terms of the true value of food and managing those externalities, and yes, helping us to find a way of expressing that in an indicator and a weighting that should actually be on this template as well. So that's really helpful, India. Thank you so much.
I think at that point we're going to have to wrap up. We've reached our hour, and so yeah, I think we've had some amazing contributions. Is there anything else to add, Lise?
No, I mean, we can't thank you enough. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Everything that's gone into the chat is going to be captured and immediately put to work in progressing what we can see on the screen now. If anybody would like to offer any further links or insights, please do. You can't ever over bombard Gavin or I with your ideas or suggestions. So we will immediately begin to synthesize those into a next iteration, again, just to make sure that we get to where we need to be faster. Anya, we didn't manage to hear from you. Before we go, should we just see if there was anything you wanted to mention, given that a couple of people here were at our last meeting?
That's absolutely fine. Yeah, I was just about to type into the chat just to say that yeah, I've been working with Lise and Omni on the environmental indicators for OmniAction. So if anyone here also has expertise or wants to join the environmental working group, then please do also reach out to that. And thanks everyone for an amazing discussion.
Amazing. So, and Anya's work is fantastic. So do get in touch with her or Lise or myself if you want to be connected at all. So amazing. Well, I think with that, we'll share the recording of this as well. So we'll, if anyone needs to check back to this at any point, and please get in touch if you've got any more questions or clarifications that you want to run through. And I think that's probably everything for today then. Amazing. Great. Well, thanks for joining us, and have a good rest of your Wednesday.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.